In this video, I'm going to take you along as I plan our first week of school, and then I will also touch on how our first day of school went, because at the time of me filming this, we already completed our first day. So I have my school nest planner out, and I have my calendar out, my highlighters, my pen, just a few of the common things that I use to plan. And then I have my cart here, my homeschool cart. I have it all ready for the school year. Usually I do an organization cart video, but I didn't do that this time because I felt very rushed. As much as I was anticipating the school year starting, we've just been so busy, and we're still working on the house that we're about to move into and renovating and all of that stuff. The latest thing that we've been working on is the painting of each room. So we're almost done with that, and then we're gonna move in soon. You can see how I've organized everything with the new curriculum. And if you wanna see my cart organization video from last year, it was pretty much the same thing. I will link that in the cards. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through each subject and just write out the lesson plan for this week, and then just kind of show you how I took down the notes and everything, and even like go into the schedule that I'm planning for this week to see how it goes. So first off, for the weekly overview, I just put like a overview of like a schedule. What I want to do at breakfast every day is read a chapter of Mr. Popper's Penguins. So I have that here in the cart. Mr. Popper's Penguins, and then I have Moffats in here too, because that's what we're gonna do after. So we're finishing off this book, and so for Monday I have it here. We read this morning chapter 13, and then we're just gonna read a chapter a day. So Tuesday 14, Wednesday 15, Thursday 16, and Friday 17. And then after that, I may just finish off the book for the weekend, because I think there's only like a couple chapters left after that, and then we'll be done with Mr. Popper's Penguins. And then we'll start getting into the literature guides. So last year, we would start off with language arts first and then math to get the main subjects out of the way. But this year, I wanted to start out reading the textbook for Curiosity Chronicles first thing for Monday. So every week, every Monday, I plan to read Curiosity Chronicles first thing before the other subjects. And the reason I did that is because I figured at the beginning of the day, he would be able to have the headspace, have the focus first thing, because when I bring that book out, you'll see, well, let me just bring it out right now. You'll notice that it's pretty lengthy for each chapter. So I'm just gonna show the first chapter. So this is chapter 1. We have these pages here. That. All of this was for chapter 1. So for this week, this is obviously our first week, and we're just kind of filling things out. I wanted to read all of chapter 1 on day 1 for Monday. If that doesn't work out for us in the future to read a whole chapter in one day, I might break it up and do like half a chapter on Monday and then the other chapter on Tuesday or whatever, however I plan that. Because like I said, they're very lengthy. But I'm gonna go ahead and just say, Curiosity Chronicles, I already absolutely loved how the textbook went so far, especially for it being that long. My son, it had his attention from the beginning to the end. The pace was great. The back and forth dialogue was so smart for them to write it out like that, because there's questions being asked and then it says the answer. And it's just more engaging that way. There's pictures throughout. There's paintings. There's a mosaic. There's maps. There's just, like the coins. There's so much throughout. He laughed at this. Here's a picture of the church. It's just so informative, but in a interesting way. So that was a total success. I do think part of why that was a success though was because it was first thing in the morning. If I would have done this last, for example, I think he would have been too tired to finish the whole chapter. So like I said, we'll see how that goes for the coming chapters, if that's how we're gonna continue doing it. But that's how we did it today. Then after that, we'll do math, then Latin, and then finish off language arts last. The reason I didn't put Latin last is because I was nervous that Latin would be put off because it's not a major subject that like is a need. So I put it towards the middle, I guess, because I just wanted to make sure we did it. However, Latin, I'm realizing my son, he actually really enjoys languages. I'm realizing that more than ever. We really enjoyed Latin together. And I actually accidentally did 3 days worth of lesson 1. And I did that in accident because I thought all of it was part of like 1 day. And at the time I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. But then I realized, oh wait, I wasn't supposed to do all of this today. But yeah, he was going along with it. So I definitely learned my lesson though. I gotta break it up. Each lesson needs to be broken up. Anyway, math I put towards the beginning because that is another subject that I thought, like, it's always kind of been a struggle subject, just not his favorite. So I put in the beginning, hoping that kind of get that out of the way. While he has more energy and more focus, we can get that done. And then, of course, language arts. It includes grammar, spelling, and writing. Okay, so this is just like a mental note for myself, how the first day went. I'm gonna go into this in more detail in another video, but this is just notes that I took so that I remember how it went the first day and how I might have to tweak things. I mean, you can read it obviously, but I'm gonna go into it with more detail in another video. Okay, so these are the weekly goals and notes. So I just put down kind of what I've mentioned already, but I put down how many days a week I want to complete each subject. So for history, I'm planning to finish it in 3 days. Latin, 4 days a week. Spelling, 4 days. Science, 3 days. And writing, 3 days. And grammar, I'll do all 5 days. Math as well. I didn't write it down, but I want to do math for 5 days. Then I also just wrote a note here because I noticed that for grammar, there's only 108 lessons for the whole school year. And as we know, there's 180 days for the whole school year. So I do still plan to do 1 lesson a day. And that way, if we finish early, that'll be a good thing. Or if we ever fall behind or need to take a break, we can. This I'll get into in a second when I go into the weekly plan, because this is some notes that I took down for the weekly plan. So this is the schedule that I want to do this week, kind of coinciding with what I wrote here. For Latin, we should be complete by Thursday. For grammar, we're going to do that every day, Monday through Friday. For writing, I want to be done by Wednesday. So I'm going to go into each subject and kind of show how I'm breaking things up for us to finish by Wednesday. For math, I'm going to do that every day. For history, I want to finish history by Thursday. I kind of wrote down what I want to do every day. For Monday, we'll do the reading. We're not going to do history on Tuesday. For Wednesday, we do the activities. And then for Thursday, we'll do the hands-on project. And then for science, we won't be doing science Mondays. We'll start Tuesdays. Hence, that's why we won't do history this day, because I don't want to overwhelm him on these days. So we'll start with science. We'll read the encyclopedia, and he'll also write notes on that. And then take a break of science on Wednesday, do science Thursday, some other activity sheets, and then Friday we'll do the project. So that's just an overview, but I'm definitely going to go into it. For each subject, you're going to see exactly what I plan to do for each subject every day. I'm going to go into it in detail. So if that didn't make sense or if it's just too fast, I'm going to break it up right now. So this is the weekly plan. On the top, I just put the dates, and then I put, the days of the week. And then for the last column here, I plan to take note on how each subject went for the week. If I need to adjust anything for the following week, I just put down notes here. I start out with language arts at the top, but because I wasn't sure if I would have space, which now I realize I did, I put literature and grammar together in this first box, spelling and writing in the second box, and then math, history, and science, and then Latin. Oh, I forgot to fill in Latin, but I'll get into that last. Okay, so for literature, I already brought out Popper's Penguins, how I'm gonna read a chapter a day while he eats breakfast. For grammar, I'm basically gonna just do a lesson a day. So let me bring grammar out and show what that looks like. We're using Growing with Grammar Level 2 this year. So this is lesson 1. It's kind of review, talking about a sentence and how to start it with a capital and end with a punctuation mark. He just had to write yes if it was a complete sentence or written correctly, and no if it was not written correctly. So that's what he did there. And then he had to rewrite these sentences, capitalize them, and add punctuations at the end. You can kind of see how you can break this up if you wanted to, if you didn't want to do both of these pages in one day. But I went ahead and had him do both pages. And then write two sentences about a game you like to play. I just let him write one sentence because he was already getting really tired by this point. And then lesson 2, pretty similar, still talking about sentences, drawing lines, and then adding words to these sentences. This is lesson 3. He writes no or yes. He rewrites these groups of words to complete a sentence and then underlines the groups of words that are in correct order. Lesson 4, subjects and predicates. He just draws lines between the subject and predicate. Add words to make each express a complete idea. And then lesson 5, subjects, predicates, underline subject part, underline predicate part, write 2 sentences. So that's what each lesson looks like for this week. Then for spelling, it's pretty much laid out with one lesson per week. So for Monday, it's lesson 1, day 1. For Tuesday, day 2, Wednesday, day 3, Thursday, day 4, and then there's a test, and then it'll be complete by Friday. We won't need to do spelling that day. So let me now get that out to see what that looks like. This year we're going with traditional spelling 2 with Memoria Press. Okay, so lesson 1 is basically where he gets exposed to all his words of the week. There's 12 words. We go over the definitions, and then he completes this page for day 1. You notice at the bottom, it'll say lesson 1, day 1. And so for today, he just had to group the words according to the sound. So up here, write the words that have the sound short A, and then short E, short I, short O, short U, and 2 sight words. So then day 2, so this will be Tuesday. You notice it says lesson 1, day 2. He will be writing the words with the consonant teams, NG, NK, CK, and then double F, L, S, or Z, and then the sight words. And along with that, he will also be writing the words, but then he'll follow the instructions here. He will put a bullet between the syllables. Then he's gonna go back and write over the vowels with red, write over the consonants with blue, put a slash over the silent E's, and then he's gonna mark long vowels with a macron and a short vowel with a brev. So this is what it's gonna look like here. It's not colored in, the vowels and the consonants, but you can see the marks, the phonetic marks here. Okay, and then day 3, you notice it says lesson 1, day 3. We'll be reading this paragraph together, and then he'll be filling out these sentences with the spelling words. So now it's testing his understanding of the vocabulary, which one makes sense in each sentence. And then finally for day 4, he does have some dictation where I'm gonna read the words to him, and then he's gonna put the sound it makes. And then will be the test. I'm gonna say the word, and then he'll write it down here. Hopefully by this time he'll know how to write each word. And then lastly, I'm gonna dictate a sentence to him, and he's gonna write the sentence down. And that's it. That's what this week will look like for spelling. For writing, this week he's going to learn how to write a letter. So the way that I plan this basically is for today, because we did writing at the very last, and so he was definitely tired by the end of the day. And so what I did was I just went ahead and we looked at this activity sheet. He was supposed to do the activity sheet today and fill this out, but I only just pointed this out. We just looked at this model letter and I just pointed out the rules of the letter and how you're supposed to write it out with the heading, the greeting, the paragraph, and then the closing. And then after I pointed that out to him, I wrote my own sample letter for him, and all he had to do was just watch how I did it. So I'm just kind of demonstrating to him how to write the letter so that he didn't have to write anything. So I wrote the date, I wrote, "Dear so-and-so, my son started school. He learned Latin, math, and history. He worked very hard. You would be proud." I put an exclamation point because, I'm trying to demonstrate different types of sentences. And then love, and then my name. So I wrote down that for the first day we did guided writing. And then on Tuesday, I plan to brainstorm with him so that way he can start to think about what he wants to write in his letter. And then we will complete this activity page for day 2. And then on Wednesday, we'll do the final draft where he will write his final draft letter. And that'll be his project. It's supposed to be real creative and colorful, and that'll be it for the first week for writing. For math, we're basically just gonna do a lesson a day. Each lesson has some textbook work, which comes out of this, which we do together, and then a workbook, some pages from the workbook, which typically he should be able to do on his own, but sometimes I still help him. And so it's just one lesson a day this week. So lesson 1 on Monday, lesson 2, lesson 3 on Wednesday, lesson 4 on Thursday, and lesson 5 on Friday. The only difference this week is I did notice when I pulled out the teacher's guide here, I noticed on lesson, 2? Sometimes they'll have games or extra activities to do, but I noticed on lesson 2 this week, there was this reinforcement where we can print out the arrow game. And we just printed it out for free on the website. It tells you the answer key here, but I'll just put a picture here of what that will look like because I haven't printed it out yet. But it's just a little extra. It really is like a game where you use a number chart and then you just kind of go where the arrows take you. So it's not like something that is going to require like too much brain work. It's just something more fun. So I figured I would print that out and see how he likes that. And then for the lessons, I'll show you what that looks like. So this was lesson 1. It always starts out with something that you could discuss together. And then there's these problems here. This is what lesson 1 looked like. We did this together. And it's all these pages here. So I will say, he was definitely tired by the end of this lesson because it's a lot of pages. And the workbook was not as much, but he just was not happy. They were pretty easy. It's just, I think he was just done with writing. It's just these 2 pages here. And he did not want to do the challenge, so I said, okay, that's fine. That's just extra, but, we pushed through. So that was lesson 1, and it's pretty much like that for all the rest of the lessons. So that's math. So for history, I already showed how the textbook looked like, and for the most part, me and my son took turns reading, and that went so well. It really interested my son. He had questions in between. It was very engaging, but at some point in the reading, he did get tired of reading out loud. So I just had him do this word search while I was reading, and he was still paying attention to the reading while he was doing the word search. So that was a great idea for him to just kind of take a break, and then he went back to reading with me. And then when we were done reading, I had him do this map work. So he just had to shade in the area that Justinian ruled over in Eastern Rome. And then he had to write down where Rome was and where Constantinople was. Not the most neatest, but he did that. So that was for the first day. I wrote down here. We read the textbook, did the map, and the crossword. Tuesday we'll take a break from history because we're going to start science. And then Wednesday, what we're going to do is I'm going to have him do this vocabulary page here where he just draws a line to its match. We'll do the comprehension questions. and then we'll do the timeline. And what I plan to do with the timeline is down here, I have the history timeline notebook from School's Nest. And so we'll go to the designated dates. See, you'll see even it has Middle Ages here. And it's in 500. There we go. And we will write down some dates. And here's the timeline here, what he'll write down. So that's gonna be on Wednesday, vocab, comprehension questions, and timeline. And then Thursday will be the activity. One of the hands-on activities that they suggest is to compare Justinian's law versus modern law. What I'm thinking to do, because it is a lot of writing that he would have to do to compare, but what I'm thinking of doing is just reading it aloud with him and just going through this so he's familiar. But I think what I'm gonna do instead of him like writing something out like that is we're gonna create a mosaic. And so what I did was I went ahead online and I printed out this mosaic, more like a template, because he's not the most creative. And so this is still something that he can work with. So that's why I wrote down mosaic and I put a star here. And that's what this was back here. Something to stand out for me for Thursday. I'm gonna cut out on the day of some colorful squares for the mosaic with some construction paper. So that's what the project that he'll be doing on Thursday. And now that's it for history. That's what that'll look like in the week. And now I'm gonna go into science. So for science, we are going with earth science and astronomy for the grammar stage. And this is with elemental science. For the first day, tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be reading from the textbook, this is the textbook and the page that they designate us. It's kind of what it looks like inside. I think this is the page actually that we're going to be reading. And what that will look like, because then after we read, he's going to take notes on that. This is what it looks like. This is the page where he'll take his notes. He'll write 1 or 2 sentences about the earth and then 1 or 2 sentences about inside the earth. I'm also planning to start the unit project. So for the whole unit, every week, we're gonna add on to the unit project. Okay, so it's gonna be the model planet Earth. So this is where you get a balloon and then you get some newspaper, and it's gonna be pretty much a paper mache of the Earth. And that's how we are gonna start out the unit project. That's all we're gonna do for tomorrow, is setting up this paper mache, and we're gonna basically let it set so it dries. Wednesday we'll take a break from that. Thursday, okay, now this I might switch up, but I'm just gonna go with what I wrote so far. I was thinking Thursday we could do the glossary and the review sheet. So what that looks like is in the student workbook. There's some pages in the very back, review sheets, and this is week 1. It's just 1 page here. You do some matching, true and false, and then what is the most interesting thing you learned this week. And then along with that, he only has 1 glossary word this week. His glossary word is continent. And so they have it right here for him to copy for vocabulary. So those are the 2 things that we'll be doing Thursday. And then finally, Friday is his demonstration or his project. And so what that looks like, we'll be doing a model earth. So we'll be having some clay and then adding layers to represent the different layers of the earth. And this is the instructions for me. So as we do that, we'll go over these couple of questions together. And then what he's gonna do is, in his student workbook for week 1, this is the demonstration report for model earth. The tools used, our method, the outcome, what it looked like. He can either draw it or I will take a picture and print it out, and then our insight. And so that's what week 1 will look like here in his student workbook. And that will be it for science for the week. So for Latin, I went with Memoria Press, Introduction to Grammar School Latin. So I went ahead and wrote it out because I didn't have it written out at the beginning of this video. but we're gonna do one lesson per week. So for lesson 1, we have this page here for the student workbook. This is what it looks like in the teacher's guide. He can see this too in his student workbook. We learn this, and then we also learn about the alphabet, some facts about the differences between English and Latin alphabet, and then we go over the vowel sounds, and then this is his vocabulary for the week and the translation. And then there's some Latin memorization and some derivatives to help him memorize what the words mean. This is basically just the answer key for the student workbook. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this because it's the same thing as what is here. Like I said, I accidentally did like 3 days worth of the lesson for the week. We were only supposed to do this section here. I thought all of this was for 1 day, but it's one lesson per week, so my bad. So he answered the review questions, which I wrote down, to do for the first week. Every day we'll practice the vocab out loud. So he did that, and then tomorrow I was supposed to have done the translation part, which he already did. And then Wednesday, the write and learn, which is this here. And then what I'm gonna go ahead and do is break that up then, and we'll finish that off maybe tomorrow. And then lastly, on day 4, the fun practice, where he just matches the sound to the letter. And then this is just something we'll do every day. It's just practicing the pronunciation and the words and things like that. So that's what it looks like for a week. Definitely not bad. It's pretty short for every day. So I'm really happy with that. And like I said, we had so much fun. He really, really enjoyed this. And I'm realizing just how much he enjoys learning languages. So very looking forward to doing this for the rest of the year. And that's what it looks like for the week. Whew, okay, so this is what it looks like for all the subjects of the week. I hope that was helpful in helping you or inspiring you to plan out your week, just so you can see how we organize things and how I plan to, complete everything. I'm tired just explaining everything, so I don't know. It definitely is a lot, and I had mentioned this before, but we're gonna be doing more this year than last year. The way it went today, I could tell that he was getting tired by the midday. He was just winding down. So we'll see how things go. We'll see how I might have to adjust things so that he's not totally overwhelmed. I know it's normal, for kids to, sometimes they just don't want to do school, but I want to teach him self-discipline. I want to teach him how to be a hard worker and to push through with, education. I know that he'll see the rewards at the end, the benefits. I'm very happy with all that we've chosen. Overall, things are great. I would just say the most challenging is math and maybe writing. Yeah, keep you updated. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them below and I'd love to answer them. Let me know how your first day went, how your first week is going, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.